Hey folks, welcome back to Regular Magazine. I'm Jason, and today we're talking about something that pretty much every wargamer faces at some point in their life, and that's the growing pile of unpainted miniatures, or like some people will call the pile of shame or pile of potential. Now, it all starts pretty innocently enough. You know, it's a starter set here, an old miniature here, a few blister packs here and there, and maybe a terrain piece or two. And then fast forward 5 years in, and your hobby room looks like a warehouse raid at a Games Workshop. Now, I'm sat on the floor today because I'm surrounded by my pile of potential. And sometimes we call it pile of shame. But let's be honest, most of us secretly we call it a pile of potential or a grey army. Now, most of us have planned these projects. Most of us planning to do them in the next month or the month after. But then all of a sudden, 6 months later, it's gathering dust. So what often starts as a collection can sometimes become a bit of a burden. You know, you've got overflowing storage bins, you've got forgotten Kickstarter pledges, there are shelves staggering under the weight of rule books for games you've never played. And these can be signs that some of our collecting has outpaced our actual hobby. Now, it all generally starts off fairly innocently. Like I said before, it's just a few boxes here or a blister pack here and there. Uh, but eventually it gets to the point where we are overwhelmed with all the stuff we've got. We've gone out and bought bits and pieces for this project or that project. But like many of us, we've never actually got around to it. Or you're one of those people like me that tends to be a bit of a butterfly that jumps from one project to another project and never quite finishes those projects before jumping onto something else. It's kind of like that shiny syndrome. You see something new and you, oh, that looks great. I'm going to jump in on that. And before you know it, you've jumped in on 2 or 3 of these new projects that have come up, and your other projects have kind of fallen behind. Now, there's probably quite a few reasons why we find ourselves buried under all this wargaming stuff, or as my wife would call it, junk. There's that fear of missing out. The limited releases, exclusives, or constant new content makes us feel like we need to buy now and not miss out. The other one is aspirational buying. We purchase with the belief that someday we'll get around to it. Someday we'll get that project done. Someday that army will be on the tabletop. But life generally gets in the way for a lot of us, and we kind of sort of get falling behind on projects we never quite managed to get finished. Now, there's the other one of being a collector, and that becomes part of your hobby. You see yourselves that you want to collect every single new miniature that comes out from release from a games company, and so you're constantly buying in new items and new products. The other one is retail therapy. Hobby shopping is like any type of shopping. It can be a coping mechanism. You know, that new starter box that comes out, we'll buy it and it makes us feel good for that few fleeting moments. And then we're left with this project that we'll get around to it eventually at some point. Who cares? We often feel overwhelmed or guilty when we're looking at our collection. I look at mine and I think I've gone mad in the last 18 months. It's just I've got loads of stuff everywhere. It's just insane, and I kind of need to do sort of slow down what I'm buying because I've got stuff now. I'm looking at it and going, it's going to take me forever to get to it. So we need to be a lot of self-discipline, and I'm one of those people that needs to do that going forward. And sometimes our hobby spaces, they become cluttered and disorganized because we're buying so much, or we've just got unfinished projects everywhere. And then you get to this point where you start sort of spending beyond your budget, and it cuts into time other priorities. And the key difference between collecting and hoarding is intentionality. Are you acquiring things that bring joy and serve a purpose, and you're planning to turn into a project and an army and game with, or are you just buying for the sake of buying? And that's when I think becomes a bit of a problem. If you're buying just for the sake of buying because you need it, you feel you need that miniature, that new starter set, the new box set, that new piece of terrain to complete a collection, then I think that tends to become a problem because you're never ever going to complete it. And if you're honestly that plays a certain games like 40k off one, there's constant releases coming out, and they churn them out on a sort of rota basis every couple of years. So a new army will come out, and so all the new releases for that army then come out, and then in a couple of years later they do the same thing again. So you're constantly going to be buying, you're constantly adding to that collection, and never really satisfying that you're coming to an end of it. The good news is you can turn it around. You can get back to the hobby and what you love without overwhelming yourself with new purchases every other week. Take stock of what you own. Sort out what you've got, what you want to build, paint and play. Anything that you don't want or you know you're never going to get around to, get rid of it. Don't keep it. There's no point. Set limits to what you're going to purchase going forward. Consider maybe adopting a buy one in, paint it, don't buy another one until you finish completing that one. Commit to small achievable goals. Like, I'll get that unit painted rather than I need to paint that whole army. And once you've built that unit, then move on to the next one. I think, I'm going to paint that unit, get that done before I move on to the next one, and so forth. Sort of don't sort of go, I've got a 2,000 point army, I've got to get it painted, and before I do anything else, because you won't achieve it. You will never get. You just open up that box with all the sprues you store and think, geez, I've got too much to get through and paint. Just take a unit at a time, build it, paint it, move on to the next one. So, set yourself small goals rather than one big goal. And before you know it, you've painted your army and you can move on to a new project. So the aim with most of us is turning that pile of what we might term as a pile of shame or pile of potential into a pile of pride. A finished, painted iron product that we can actually get to game with, and it just means being intentional about what you actually want to do and what you want to achieve. Wargaming is supposed to be fun. It's not really supposed to be stressful. You don't need everything to to enjoy the hobby. Sometimes the best gains come from using stuff you already have. Sometimes the best way to fall back in love with a hobby is to let go of what's holding you back, whether that's an overstuffed shelf, boxes of sprues that you never touched, or the pressure to keep up with every new release. After all, the heart of wargaming isn't in how much you own. It's in the stories you tell and the games you play. So if this video has helped you feel a little less guilty about your pile of shame or your grey army or whatever you want to call it, then give it a like, maybe share it with your local hobby friends. Let us know in the comments what is your oldest unopened box in your stash, the one that you feel the most shame about, you've had for years that you've not done anything with, but you were planning to do something with. Okay, so don't forget to pop a like and subscribe, and we'll be here every week with either some more hobby sanity, some wargaming rants, and occasionally I'm going to put out some painting videos. That's all for this week. Cheers.